Would you like to know the easiest, the fastest, and the most effective way? The most effective way to determine which of your PPOs, which of those companies are willing to negotiate better fees, and then how to get the maximum fee when you figure out which ones are willing to do it. That's exactly what we're going to cover today. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking about that right now in this live broadcast here from PPO Exit on Planet Gems. So if you've been in PPO Exit, this group, for a while, then you know my story. If you're fairly new, then I believe it's important that you know, or you should be aware that everything I'm sharing comes from personal experience from my practices. This isn't theory. This isn't a bartender turned dental guru telling you what to do with your practice. I've lived through this stuff, and some of you may know what I call my Black Friday. Black Friday was about 27 years ago, and I can smile and laugh about it now, but it wasn't funny back then. 27 years ago, I came within 3 days of losing my home and my office, and it was a Friday afternoon in October, pouring rain, and I'm sitting in the office of a bankruptcy attorney, and he basically, I was there for maybe 10, 15 minutes. I think it was 10 minutes, and it was $300. It was $30 a minute, if you figure out the math. Anyway, he said after about 10 minutes, he said, I don't see any way for you to get out of this. He said, you need to file. I'll meet you at 9 o'clock on Monday, and we'll file for bankruptcy in court. And I never did meet him on Monday. I opted to but I successfully turned my practice around. It took a couple of years. There was a lot of trial and error. There are 4 basic pillar areas that we'll talk about later. First, I want to get into the hack as far as how do you negotiate and all that. But there are 4 basic pillar areas, so do stay tuned throughout. It's a pretty short broadcast today, but you want to know what those 4 areas are, because when you're focusing on those, any one of those could bump your practice $100,000 or more, maybe multiple hundreds of thousands. So those are the ways, those are the things that I did that allowed me within 2 years to drop all of my PPOs in the Framingham office and go 100% fee for service. Did the same thing a few years later when I took over my dad's practice when he was dying of cancer, and that one was losing money. Big practice, 11 chairs, huge team. And within 2 years, I was able to eliminate 13 of his 15 plans and have almost 100%, about 90% fee-for-service practice there that was highly profitable as well. So let's look at some math associated with 2 different options that you have. Actually, there's 3 different options. One option, which is terrible, is if you're in PPOs and losing money and dealing with all the red tape and the trash that they do to your team when you try to submit and you get denials and downgrades and stalls and all this, you could do nothing. And unfortunately, that's what most practices do, which is they just deal with it. It's just part of the cost of doing business, and it's painful. It doesn't help your patients, and it doesn't help you or your family. So that's one option, is to do nothing. It's not what we recommend. There's 2 other options. One option would be to negotiate. See if you can negotiate better fees. That is an option. Another option would be drop a few of your plans. So let's look at the math. And if you've got a pen, this is a writer downer. You really want to look at what does this mean numbers-wise to your practice if you did one versus the other. All right. I'm going to use a $1.2 million practice. Just you can... Let's say you're at 600,000 or you're at 2.4 million. Just do the math related to wherever you are. Do the multiple or the percentage related to where you are. So $1.2 million practice. Let's say you're writing off 33%, which is pretty typical of a lot of offices today. A lot of practices don't even know. About 50% of practitioners don't even know how much you're writing off. Why? Because you're one of the 50% who are entering the network fees instead of your full fees for your patients, and then you have no way of telling exactly what you're losing each year. I'm not going to get into it now, but there's a number of reasons that's it's not the best way to go. In fact, it's a bad way to go. So anyway, let's say you're at 1.2, you're writing off 33%. Let's say a third is, let's say about $400,000 a year. By the way, that $400,000 is pure profit. That $400,000 is pure profit because it wouldn't cost you a penny to collect more money if they would allow you a higher fee for the same amount of work. Overhead's paid. So let's say you're in network 8 plans, and that may be pretty typical. Maybe you're only in 3 or 4, maybe you're in 10 or 12, but I'm just going to use 8 for the example. And you hire a top negotiation firm, and they're out there. There's some really good ones. You hire a top negotiation company, and as you guys well know, there's a lot of the big companies and a lot of the smaller companies today even who refuse to negotiate. So these guys are going to go out, they're going to go to bat for you, and let's say they get half of the you're in 8 plans, and let's say they get 4, half of your plans, the companies say, okay, we'll negotiate. So they go to the table, they go back and forth a bunch of times, and let's say they get 10% increase on your allowable fees on 20 of your codes. So you get 20 of the codes, 10% increase. Well, the fact that only half of your plans allowed you to negotiate at all means that your 10% is 5%. And by the way, they always give you the biggest increases. You know, that 10% increase, or 5% as it is now, because only half your plans allowed you to negotiate, excuse me, that's not even a real number, because the 20 codes that you submitted that you were negotiating on, they gave you the best increases on the codes that you submitted the least frequently. Write that down. They're giving you the best increases on the fees that you submitted, the codes that you submitted the least frequently. And even though that looks good on paper, if you do the math, that 5% might become 3%. So it was 10% increase, but only half of your plans, but only on 20 of your codes, and the bigger increases were on the codes that you're not doing that more frequently. So that's 3%. Now, it's not even 3% on your 1.2 million top line, because you're getting that increase on your allowable fees, which is 800,000. So what are you really getting? Well, if you take your 1.2 million, which is your top line, you drop that to 800,000, which is your allowable fees, and you get 3% increase on your allowable fees on average, you just got $24,000 for a whole lot of work, time, money, and effort. And there's a better way. There are a number of better ways. So let's play devil's advocate. I mentioned a few moments ago, I mentioned in the beginning, that there are 4 major pillars that are the most effective areas that anytime, this is what I did in my Framingham practice, this is what I did in my Worcester practice, and this is why I was able to go 100% fee-for-service and then 90% fee-for-service in Worcester, because I focused on those 4 pillars. What are the 4 pillars? Well, the first one is targeted new patient flow, targeted marketing to bring in specific patients who are in need of specific treatments or services. The type of patients you're looking for with your targeted marketing are those who would be full fee. And the type of services that you want to market would be full fee, even if they're in network, if you're in a position to be able to charge full fee because you're in a state that allows that. I've covered that in some of our other PPO Exit Lives, and I'm sure we'll touch on that again. There's a lot of ins and outs to that one that are not immediately obvious. All right, so what's pillar number 2? Recall retention. Recall retention is one of the biggest areas of untapped opportunity in almost every practice that we work with. Almost every practice I have worked with in the last 23 years, oh yeah, we do Solution Reach or Weave, or we have Demand Force, or we have Dentrix Ascend, or we have all, and those are good, by the way. Demand Force. You should be using one of those. You absolutely should. You've got to be using those too. But there's a significant percentage of patients in every practice who just don't respond. So how do you get? That's another area you should be looking at. Now, devil's advocate again, but Tom, we're slammed out in hygiene, so far out right now. We have 2 hygienists full-time, 70 hours of hygiene, and you cannot put one patient in for 5 months, for 6 months. There are some of you who are in that situation. If you are in that situation, you are choking your practice. Let me repeat that. If you're booked out for months, several months at a time in hygiene, I don't mean you have some bookings. I mean you can't put anybody in. You're booked solid, can't get anybody in. I want to see openings in hygiene in the next couple of weeks. I don't want to see booked out solid for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Why? You're choking your new patient flow. And yeah, okay, we put in blockouts for new patients. We put in blockouts for deep scaling. Yeah, it's a good Band-Aid. but you need to increase your hygiene. Well, there's no hygienist anymore after COVID. I get it. Everybody's in the same boat, but some are fixing it. And the ones who fix it will thrive. All right, enough on that, but recall retention, you got to be able to go back and go deeper into your recall and bring more of those patients back in, and it's an easy way to bump $100,000 to $200,000 a year. Very easy way to do that. Case acceptance is pillar number 3. Case acceptance, well, that's a really easy place to increase, because if you could tweak your case acceptance just 5, 6, 7%, you would go up hundreds of thousands a year if you're doing any presentation at all. And you're presenting cases every day. So case acceptance is a really good area to work on, to do that kind of an increase. And the fourth one is treatments or services that you're currently not offering that other doctors are. There are other doctors out there, many of them, who are offering this or that, but you're not, but that would be beneficial to your patients and profitable for your practice. So there's 4 different areas. When you're focusing on the right things, you'll have a really good chance to increase several $100,000 in less than a year. It usually takes 6 to 10 months to see a multi-$100,000 increase when you're focused on those 4 areas. Why am I talking about that instead of the hack? And we'll get there, by the way. I'm going to get to exactly how you can do that. I promise that, and I will deliver that. I'll tell you exactly what I did, and it worked. It worked amazingly well in my dad's office, because he had 15 different plans. And anyway, before we ended up dropping 13 of the 15 eventually, but before we dropped them, I invented this hack and found out just kind of serendipitously that it worked really well. All right, in some instances, it doesn't always work. So why are we talking about the 4 pillars and increasing, all these other areas? Well, because when you go up $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000, you're in a far better position to be able to drop 1 or 2 or more of your PPOs. If you're writing anything down at all, and I hope you are, write down your number 1 goal in order to reduce PPOs safely and predictably is to increase your productivity, increase your profitability, increase your productivity. Get all your numbers up, your top line, your bottom line, everything. As that all goes up, you become in a financially stable position where you can start to pick off some of the PPOs. Even if you lost every patient within the 1 or 2 that you're starting to drop, which, by the way, you won't if you do it right. And we'll talk about that more throughout the lives in the future. Even if you lost every one of those patients, if you've already increased several $100,000, then you're in a position to do that, and your profitability will go up because you're now full fee on that number of patients. Yeah. All right, so bearing in mind that other patients are going to fill some of those spots, and it costs you money just to produce the work that you're doing for free. We didn't even talk about that, but it costs you about 12 to 15% lab and supply costs to produce the $400,000 that you're losing. So you're losing another probably 50 to 60,000. Let's say it's 15%. It's just, PPOs are just nuts. You just don't want to be there. All right, so you want to put yourself in a better financial position so you can start to drop. Let's say you're in a financial position where you could drop a quarter of your plans. All right, so if you drop a quarter of the plans, well, instead of losing $400,000, you've just collected another $100,000. You've just eliminated the loss of $100,000 right there. And again, that's pure profit. So you can add $100,000 profit by dropping a quarter of your plans if you're losing $400,000 a year. And again, do your own math, but this is to give you a pretty typical scenario. I got to tell you a story. This is kind of a funny story, and it always gets to me that I just wasn't looking at the bigger picture. When I bought my Framingham office, there was a long white picket fence, little wooden fence, about maybe 4 or 5 feet high, all along the parking lot, separating our property from another property. And the fence was solid, but it hadn't been painted for years. It didn't look good. It was terrible. I didn't want patients to see that. And so I said to myself, I could hire a painter, but I can probably just do this myself. And I just put a lot of money into buying the office, and so I was being penny wise and pound foolish. Didn't realize it at the time. I should have just had a painter come and do what they knew how to do best, and I should have focused on seeing more patients, doing some more marketing, doing some more recall, all these other things. But anyway, I went to Home Depot, and I bought an attachment for my drill, and the attachment had this wire brush on it, and it was to remove, it's basically to strip peeling paint. So, I talked to one of the guys, you get this. So I took it back, and I'm there with my drill and spinning this wire brush thing, 3 square inches at a time or whatever, little areas, little patches, removing the paint. It was endless. It was endless, and it was useless, and I was doing a terrible job. I never finished that job. I know I eventually hired somebody to do it, but I can't tell you how many hours I put into doing that. And even if I did a good job of it, even if I could strip it well and repaint it well and did a good job, write this down. One of the problems that we face as a business owner is choosing the wrong thing to focus on. Choosing the wrong thing to focus on. So again, if you're focused on negotiations and you're not focused on the 4 pillars to increase everything else in your practice so that you can start dropping PPOs, you are focused on the wrong thing. All right, so what about the hack I promised? Let's do that now. So I promised you I was going to tell you what it is. I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. It will work sometimes for some doctors, and I'll tell you how to figure out who it works for and when and which. All right, so what is it? I negotiated way higher fees, not a 3 or a 5 or a 10. I negotiated way higher fees with certain plans that were willing to do it, and with others, they basically just, I don't want to make any rude gestures, but you can imagine what they told me when I told them I wanted much higher fees. They gave me a gesture on paper. So how do you know which PPOs will deal and give you much, much better fees? All right, write this down. This is a writer-downer. And by the way, I was talking with my wife, Elizabeth, the engineer, this morning, because we're always talking to you, what are you going to do on the live today? And I was telling her what the topic is. And she and I were passionate about this because you got to know who will negotiate. You got to understand which companies will negotiate. The only plans that will negotiate significantly higher fees are the ones that need you more than you need them. Write that down. The only plans who will negotiate significantly higher fees are the ones that need you more than you need them. Now, what does that mean? What it means is either they oversold this plan in your community. There's not enough dentists versus the number of employers that they sold this plan to, and now the number of patients who are on this plan, so that they don't want anybody else to drop. Or they didn't oversell, but maybe 1 or 2 of your colleagues, unbeknownst to you, have dropped that plan over the last couple of years. And again, they need you more than you need them right now because they can't afford to lose any other dentists. So how you find that out? That's not public information, and they will never share that with you. Here's how I found it out. I don't know that was good grammar, but here's how I figured that out. The only time you can do what I did, and I found this out by accident, and then I started doing it on purpose once I realized what was going on. The only time that you can deploy this strategy is when you have already increased enough financially that you are in a solid financial position, so that, let's say you've got 8 plans and you want to test this with one of the plans, and you got to be in a position where you could walk away from that plan, drop it immediately, and it would make no difference to you financially. You do not want to risk doing what I'm about to tell you to do unless you're in a good financial position to do it, because you're not bluffing. This is not a bluff. And here's what it is. It's a letter that I wrote to these PPOs, and it started out something like this. Dear, I'm going to call the PPO Acme PPO because I don't want to use any real PPOs names. So, Dear Acme PPO. And you keep it very, very civil, very professional, very respectful. Dear Acme PPO, I have enjoyed treating patients within your network. However, given the rising cost of delivering uncompromised care, I can no longer afford to treat patients in your Acme PPO network based on the fees that you have allowed for my practice. So please see attached Schedule A. Now, what was attached Schedule A? It says, please see attached Schedule A with my proposed new allowable fee schedule. What was attached Schedule A? Attached Schedule A, I just took my full fees and I reduced them by 4 or 5%, some ridiculously minor number. And that was my new proposed fee schedule. This shocked me what happened. So before I tell you what happened, let me give you the rest of the letter. So please see attached Schedule A, which is my new proposed allowable fee schedule. If you're able to increase my allowable fees to these numbers effective immediately, great. I'll be happy to continue to remain in network as an XYZ, Acme PPO provider. Then it said in the next paragraph, if you are unable to increase my fees to match that Schedule A, please consider this my 90-day or 180, whatever number of days you're required by that network contract, notice of leaving your network. So basically, it was a give me these fees or I'm leaving your network in X number of days. Now, you got to send that FedEx signature required so that there's no way that they can say to you later, I never got the letter, because they do that. They will do that. So you send it FedEx signature required. Some of the companies are just going to say, yeah, see you, goodbye, because they don't need you. They don't need you, and they just laugh when they tear the letter up and say to you, yeah, okay, there's your 180-day notice, goodbye. Others, what they said to me and what they will say to you if they're in the position where they can't allow you to leave, they can't afford for you to leave, and you won't know that until you do this. Others will say, we don't want to lose you. We appreciate, we value your relationship. We don't want to lose you. We can't afford those fees. We can't afford to give you those allowable, make those your fees. However, here's what we could do. And they will come back with a counter offer that is way higher than if you were negotiating not from a position of strength. And I realize that's a double negative. But when you negotiate from a position of strength, as I was when I did this, you'll find that some are going to say, screw you, goodbye, because they don't need you. And the ones who need you are going to be way more likely to give you more significant fees on the treatments and codes that you actually do more of and so forth. And I got to tell you, your local colleagues will tell you that, you can't reduce or eliminate PPOs, not in our area. Everybody accepts them, and all the patients have that plan, and you're going to kill your practice. So why do you think your local colleagues tell you it's impossible? There's two reasons. Reason number one is because they don't know how to do it, or they would have. If they knew how to get out safely and build it doesn't have to be even fee-for-service. A lot of the guys we work with, a lot of our clients say, I don't necessarily need to go fee-for-service, but I hate this plan, I hate this plan, and I hate that plan. I want to get out of those three in the next year. Cool. So whatever it is, you may want to get rid of one or two specific plans, or you may want to go fee-for-service. It doesn't matter. You can do it anywhere if it's done right, and it's done safely, and it's done predictably. So I told you there were two reasons that they don't want, that they tell you that it can't be done in our area. Reason number one I told you already, which was, well, they don't know how to do it, or they would have. Reason number two is my crabs in the bucket theory. If you take 5, 6, 8 crabs and fill a bucket with crabs, let's say it's a high, don't fill the bucket, fill it maybe halfway. So you fill it halfway with crabs, and it's got high edges on it. Big, like said, what are they, 5-gallon buckets from Home Depot. The crabs are all jumping and running on top of each other and trying to get out, and they're stepping on each other. They are. This is you'll see. Don't do it, but this is what they do. They step on each other, and finally, one who's standing on the one there, he grabs the top, and he's got one claw over the edge, and he's starting to get out. And the crab below him grabs him and pulls him back down. It's what they do. It's just what they do. So I got to tell you that after I went 100% fee-for-service in my Framingham practice, and as I said, I dropped 13 of my 15 plans when I took over my dad's practice. For the last 23 years, this is exactly what I've been doing, is helping other dentists to safely and predictably reduce PPOs, some going full fee and 100% fee-for-service, and others just dropping the plans that they hated the most. I just got to tell you that it is... I use the word liberation. You can see it on the screen. It's liberating professionally and financially to reduce your PPOs, even if it's just by 1 or 2 PPOs. We can help you to rapidly increase your revenue so that you can establish that position of financial strength, and then you'll be in a position to begin to safely withdraw. We help you to map out a plan step by step, specific to your situation. It's different in each practice. It's specific to your situation. If I own this practice, what steps would I take? Which ones would I take first? It's kind of like my picket fence where I went to Home Depot and bought that thing to try to remove the paint. I was focused on the wrong thing. I was spending all my time on the wrong thing. So whether you want to drop one or go fee-for-service, 100%, and whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the video later, if you type liberation if you type liberation into the comments below, my team will reach out and chat with you and see if we might be able to help you. If, on the other hand, you'd like to skip to the front of the line, just click on the link in the description or the link that's in the post, and you can schedule your own super short. It's about a 5 to 10 minute complimentary PPO reduction call. So you could either type liberation, in which case my team will reach out to you to schedule that 5 or 10 minute PPO reduction call, or you can use the link in the comment or the post below and use that, and you can kind of head to the front of the line because you can choose a time that would work for you. Who's this for? You got to be a general dentist. You got to be the owner of your practice. And if you're a general dentist and you own your practice, type liberation, or just click on the link below and you can schedule your own. Hey guys, thank you so much for being with us here in PPO Exit, being part of our movement. Have a great weekend. And remember, you are only one gem away. Take care and enjoy.